Welcome back to the discussion How U.S. Cyber Command is Keeping Networks Safe, sponsored by Micro Focus Government Solutions on Federal News Network. My guest today is Command Sergeant Major Cheryl D. Lyon, the Senior Enlisted Leader at U.S. Cyber Command. And I'm Scott Massioni. Sergeant Major, we were just talking about the threats and how you're dealing with them. I was wondering if you could tell us how data is driving these solutions and, bringing in terabytes of information and using automation for those sorts of things. So how are you using that sort of information to inform your decisions?
So as you can imagine, Scott, cyber is not strictly part of, as we said, something that the Department of Defense has to be worried about or industry alone. So it's also not just in a single area. So cyber is not stovepiped in one domain or one organization. And so one of the things that we have to do is think about cyber as being a multi-domain and global strategy that we must can work to enable. So through that, we have what we call the IKE project. It's a new project and being developed here at Cyber Command. And it's a data tracking tool that enables quick decision making and makes use of all that big data. So the big data platforms, you have to have a way to get through all that information. And so IKE will provide that ability to us, and it'll be a force multiplier for the cyber mission force.
And Sergeant Major, how much do you work with your sister agencies? I know the National Security Agency is at Fort Meade with you. How much are you working with them, and how much do they sort of fit into your mission?
Scott, absolutely, and that's one of the things that Cyber Command and NSA should be very proud of, is their ability to share information and the relationships that they have developed with other government agencies, as well as the academia and industry. So that's really, really important. As mentioned earlier, we're not in this alone, and it's not a singular domain. So it takes all of us being cognizant of the need to share information, data, techniques, and to develop those fully. We also mentioned that technology changes on a rapid basis. So having that collaboration enables us to better respond to the rapid changes that occur in the cyber domain.
I want to talk a little bit about people and being a leader within the command. Could you tell us about being on the enlisted side, and what you do as an enlisted person in Cyber Command, and how your leadership works throughout the command?
Actually, I can. It's one of those things I feel very, very passionate about, and one of the reasons why I do is because people are our greatest asset, and without them we can't accomplish anything. So on the enlisted side of the house, encouraging, recruiting, and bringing that talent into the services is very, very important. We have to compete with industry, we have to compete with academia, and there are lots of opportunities for cyber warriors in the civilian sector. So we have to be able to entice service members to come and want to work for the Department of Defense in some shape, form, or fashion. So being able to do things in the cyber domain, in the services, is far different than what it would probably be within the civilian sector. So that's a form of an attraction that helps us to bring in some of the top talent that we can use for the services. While many people think that extra money can help to bring those individuals in, it's not always the money that's the attractor. It's about being able to be part of, serving a mission, providing, as I mentioned earlier, that capability to the services, and being able to contribute to something that's bigger than themselves, and that they would never ever have the opportunity to do elsewhere, as I mentioned. But being part of that team, being part of the team is important, and for many that's an attraction. On the flip side of recruiting the talent for Army Cyber, or for Cyber Command, is the need to retain that talent. And again, it's not just about the money, it's about the mission. It's about being able to do things that you would not be able to do anywhere else. It's about being part of that team and contributing again to something that's greater than yourself. Now, the money helps sometimes, but I think those three things are more important to most than the money itself.
And what about being a woman in the military? You know, women are considered a minority in the military at this point. And what's it like being someone of importance? And how do you work with diversity, especially when it comes to a realm that tends to be male dominated at this point?
So that is a great question, Scott. So yes, I am a woman in the military. I will tell you, quite frankly, I have had opportunities within the military that have made all the difference for me, that have kept me coming back. I've been afforded the opportunity because I could perform, not based upon the fact that I was a woman. So that's always reassuring, and it's good to know that. Um, I've been based upon capabilities and not gender. So I think that is critical to the diversity of our organization and critical to its success. As you walk the halls of NSA and Cyber Command, what you'll find are some of the most intelligent people I consider in the world, who have been empowered to do things and to make things happen. And I consider that to be one of the attractions of working here at this organization. And so along with that is what you'll find is the diversity among the people who work here. It's enriching. Enriching is invaluable to propelling the institution forward and taking advantage of how diversity contributes to the capabilities. Different thought processes, different purviews, different delivery, and how things can affect the fight. So I think it's a great opportunity and a great place to work.
Right. And the final topic I wanted to bring up is cloud services. The clouds are obviously extremely important. You're moving away from having your own managed data systems and using different commercial services. So how does that work into the way that you're making your security posture work?
So we've mentioned already that there is a huge amount of data that is generated by cyber operations. And so what are you going to do with all that information? You have to have some place where you can place it and work from it, with it, to manipulate it to do the things that you need it to do, right? So the cloud services will play an important part in our capabilities, and those are being developed and built upon so that we can make the most and manipulate those systems the way that we need to and see fit with the amount of data that is filling them at this time.
And as far as zero trust goes, do you think that will be expanding into our everyday lives? I mean, we don't use zero trust for everything at this point. Will it be something that we'll have to use in the future?
As mentioned earlier, everybody is affected by cyber. Nobody is left out from the cyber domain. So what we have to realize as we work on systems, we work on networks, that we have to consider that each of those might have been infiltrated by the adversary, and that someone is out there looking for our data. So zero trust is exactly what it sounds like. Don't trust the networks that you work on. Consider them to have to be a hostile environment. And so managing those is important to our ability to maintain our integrity of our systems. So, you know, one of the biggest thing for us, we talk about the data, we talk about the infrastructure, the amount of data, the vitality of the networks that we operate on. You know, so for the Department of Defense, it's critically important that we protect our networks, and that that's why zero trust is so important, is that we treat every network that we operate on as a hostile environment, so that, because if someone were able to compromise any of those, a host, a network, it could have devastating effects. And so that's one of the things that we hope to mitigate and never, ever allow to happen.
One of the things I really like to ask people about is the future. What do you see 10 years out or 3 years out? So for the security posture and also for cyber command and how personnel will be adapting, what are you seeing?
So Scott, what I see, 10 years from now, sometimes it's hard to think about that. We know that technology is going to be rapidly changing, evolving, and adapting. So what we have to look at is the National Defense Strategy. It's directed us to be more lethal and efficient and interoperable with our partners, And to all those effects, we are working toward and managing data for operational advantage, and to increase our effectiveness is critical. So 10 years from now, I see us evolving with technology as well.
So we just have a couple minutes here left in the segment, and I wanted to bring something up that really honestly affects every single person, which is cyber hygiene. What's the importance of that, and how are you sharing tips with people? Maybe you can share a few tips with us.
So, Scott, there are lots of tips. I was asked recently to share personal experiences. I've worked in environments where my electronic devices were compromised on a regular basis just because of where I was working. So being situationally aware is very, very important. Changing passwords on a regular basis, watching what networks that you sign into, log into. You can get into your emails and who is sending those, attachments. There's any number of things that are vital to your personal hygiene of your security on your cyber domain that you can do to protect yourself. And I think it's really important. The civilian sector, everybody in general needs to be educated on what it is that they need to do to protect themselves.
Right, because I mean, you can be as high tech as you want to be, but when it comes down to it, if your password is 1212, that's your entry point, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Changing that password regularly helps, and not having your daughter's birth date as your password also helps. Your dog's birth date or your dog's name is helpful. Don't do that either. So yes, there are any number of things that people should be aware of, and sometimes I think we take that for granted that they are, and I think we would be disappointed to find out that they are not really sometimes very savvy about the things that they can do to help protect themselves.
Finally, is there something that you just want to say to young cyber professionals right now that are maybe in high school or thinking about going into STEM, and why the military might be a good path for them?
So I highly encourage STEM. And if you don't have the STEM program, I think there are lots, but there are some places who don't. I think it's a great opportunity with the modern technology that is evolving. Anybody can be a part of it. We talked about diversity within the workforce and how it contributes to the development, be it the cyber domain, mitigating those attacks that might occur. But there are those who I would highly encourage them to do it. They would have great opportunities. They would be able to do the things that they might not ever be able to do in the civilian sector, and they would become a part of a great team. So I highly encourage our young teenagers, adults, to work that way. Cybercom and NSA both have great internship programs that had I known about as a young person, I would have been highly interested in, because I think it would have been a great starting point for some of those things.
Great. Well, Sergeant Major, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
I'd like to thank today's guest, Command Sergeant Major Cheryl D. Lyon, the Senior Enlisted Leader at U.S. Cyber Command. I'm your moderator, Scott Massioni, and you're listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Micro Focus.